Thank you so much for being here with us for this launch of Missions.dev. Especially, there's a lot of people here who have been kind of involved in this whole thing for a long time, and that's how you kind of sustain a creative project, by having people such as yourselves who keep being interested in it. So you kind of keep this thing going. So thank you for that. What does it mean to launch something that has been going on for a while? For us at East of Moon, this was like a moment to stop thinking about this as an experimental thing that we do with people we meet, and we're kind of always redefining and kind of consolidating a little bit and saying, this is what it is, this is how it works, and now it's ready for more people to use it. That's the point for us to do that, and an excuse. So there's a launch. So in that spirit, I was sort of last minute trying to land on what it is and what it's supposed to be. And this is like the version 30 minutes ago. I landed on this, and this is kind of, when you do something creative, you go into lots of directions, and then you always invent what was the purpose after the fact. At least this is my case. So the purpose of this is, it is a tool to invent futures by engaging communities in co-creation. And I know it sounds quite grand, so I do want to point out that it is futures in plural. It is not the future of humanity. It is a tool to invent futures of a neighborhood, a town, a workspace, a creative community, something like that. That's what we want to do with this tool that we're making. And we are East of Moon. Our motto is poetry should be made by all and not by one. And now we are making technology. Sometimes we are making films. Sometimes we are writing. Sometimes we're doing a workshop, and so forth. So as we make technology, we are aware that technology has inspired utopias, but also dystopias in the last 50, 60, 70 years of us making it. There have been examples like Project Cybersyn that have attempted to create more democratic ways of running the economy and society. There has been a hope of like a future where poetry can be made by all, and that's facilitated by networks, by computers, by these things. But lately, it almost seems like the dystopia is winning in this, where our heart is. Young people used to be the enthusiastic ones about adopting new things. I find it incredible, this story that half of young people in the UK would prefer to have grown up in a time before the internet. And half of them actually also supports digital curfews. So young people are literally asking for technology to be taken away from them. Where precisely are we with that, and what does it tell us? And where does that leave us, who have some capacity to make things and create stuff? And it is a challenge to try to make things differently. At the same time, as a tiny organization, community-based, with no massive institutional funding or armies of programmers or designers behind us, why do we think that we can create alternatives to these technologies that kids or young people are asking to be protected from? Inherently, they are going to be imperfect tools because we don't have the power and capacity to make perfect tools. And I think the only way forward for us to think about this and to take this on, at least for East of Moon, is to embrace this idea of imperfection. We are now in Hafnarhouse, which is a creative space, which for me very much feels imperfect. When you walk in here, everything has not been designed and perfected by engineers, by designers, by architects to the last detail. Rather, it is as an imperfect space which, for it to function, it invites the users to become co-creators in it. And this is our hypothesis at East of Moon, that we need tools like that, imperfect tools, but tools that invite us to participate. Somebody said, this looks like a homemade version of Facebook. And I was very happy with that. Maybe it's an imperfect version, but homemade is also one way to put it. So the ideological basis for this software, and let me just highlight that there is an ideological basis for this software. We need ideological basis for software, not just growth projections. The ideological basis for this software comes from two sources. One of them is Brian Eno, the musician, who has explained how new things in art and in creativity, I assume, come out of scenes and not individuals. We talk about individuals in history. We sell individuals as commodities when we give out records or such things. But really, the new things emerge as the interaction between scenes, or I could also say communities. The second ideological underpinning of this software is Mariana Mazzucato and the idea behind missions. In her case, she has explained how it is possible to galvanize society through the state to work towards solving challenges. And from my perspective, in some way, what they're both working towards is sort of the same thing, which is to create spaces and scenes and communities and moments in time when individuals are sharing ideas, working together, being experimental, taking a long run, and creating together. And that is what I find fascinating, and we would like to contribute something towards with this imperfect tool. I also maybe want to take a little bit of time to tell you where this all came from. And some of you have been part of this story for a while, both because I think it's important to recognize that, just like Brian Eno says, this comes out of scenes. If this is novel and new, it comes out of a scene. It's not a stroke of genius from myself, the genius that I am, only. And this has also gotten inspirations from many different directions. After the financial crash in Iceland, I was an even more young participant in the creative sector, filmmaker, programmer in Iceland. And we found ourselves in circumstances where all the funding had dried up as a result of the financial crash. But at the same time, there was distrust in banks and financial institutions. And crowdfunding was becoming a thing. And so we, in Iceland, we could not use crowdfunding like Kickstarter and Indiegogo because Iceland was under capital controls, where you couldn't take money in and out of the country. So as a creative community, we launched a platform to do crowdfunding in Iceland with some big champions like Brandur here. But what I'm highlighting is we launched this not just, we were going to try to become rich and successful and famous, but it was also something that emerged out of a need of the creative scene that we were part of. And what I'm showing you is a sketch of a platform that my colleague in this company, Carolina Fund, Jónmundur made, which kind of shows you a little bit of what we were trying to do, in that we were trying to make a container, a space where you could create things together. It wasn't just about the funding. It was also about finding people, showing how the project is going, and creating this kind of access, this horizontal community where people can participate in. So this was a while ago, so I'm kind of just showing you how this Missions.dev has emerged out of the needs of the creative communities that I've been part of. We created Karolina Fund, and it still exists. We moved to providing, through Karolina Fund, software, crowdfunding software for other countries. In particular, we worked with a company called Messinati in Finland. And this is another milestone in that kind of formation of this product, which is called Kokilon Paikka, or Place to Experiment. So around 2017, the Finnish government concluded that they needed to stop doing these big public projects where they would make rigid definitions, have a procurement process where a big company would take on a job for them. It would inevitably always run out of the budget and go over the budget and never deliver exactly what was promised. This is pretty much the kind of story of creative project that the public sector. Hi, I'm going to go back to Karolina Fund here. So Ingi, I was talking about you for so long. Okay. Anyway, so that's how that emerged. The circle is complete now. So the public, so finding different ways of working with the public, with public money, and engaging the public in working in a more experimental way. So what they were doing, and as Karolina Fund, we joined into this project as technologists. They rather than having big procurements, they started funding small-scale experiments. And also, they worked with the public on the stage of idea and challenges, and then proposals, and then projects, and then results. So those of you who have used Missions.dev, that you can see already where there is some influences here. So lots of credit goes to that. I always felt like the idea behind this was more powerful than the actual implementation, which is often the case, because it's an experimental, iterative process. But this project ran for a few years, is not active anymore, but on the basis of that, I continued to work. Sometimes around the same time, I moved to this place called Þingeyri in the Westfjords. It's a small village. And I experienced firsthand the limitations of how the public sector, in Iceland at least, is encouraging creativity and development. And what I experienced was that in this small village of Þingeyri, there were small projects being funded. And in another small village in the Eastfjords, small projects were being funded. And in the north, there were also projects. And understanding creative communities in an experimental way, you know that the actual value of all these experiments is the learning, the connectivity, the iterative process of design that a scene goes through, or a community. And the problem was that the only way to know about some project in the East was to go into the Regional Development Office website, click 7 times, download a PDF, scroll down to page 17, and all you'd get was like one line of what it was, and nothing about how it went. If you wanna take part in it, how can you do that? How can you be engaged? There was no attempt to galvanize communities to work together. So, as somewhat of a weird bank manager in this village, I am, of course, started to try to solve that problem with software. And looking at what the Finns had been doing and we had been helping them with, I felt a little bit like this was a bit too linear. So we landed on this metaphor of the hexagonal map. And these colors are the challenges, the insights, the ideas, the projects. But we wanted to see this more as kind of a growing ecosystem rather than a linear process. So that's how we started this. I started a collaboration with Magdalena, whose daughter is here, taking so much enthusiastic part in our meeting. She was running hackathons in rural areas around Iceland. It was the time of the COVID, and so we started making these villages of ideas, we called them. So we wanted to show all the interesting things that were happening in these communities. We wanted to show what they were about, what challenges they were trying to solve, the ideas that were emerging, and how to be part of it, how to connect with it. That's what we wanted to do. At some point, I was recruited by Renee, who also has joined us today, to be a co-host of this community that we are in now, Hafnarhouse, and many of you are members of. It's a large-scale artist and creative and entrepreneurial or innovative community, hosting some 500 people. This is for the recording, for the people watching this. I know you all know. And I promise my intentions were not to make another platform. This was not how I went into this. But what happened is we evaluated a few solutions. We looked at office management systems, and they could help you book meeting rooms. They could help you send invoices. They could you could raise issues and do all the things to manage this kind of a thing. But none of them had like that thing at the center, which is the red thread. It's like getting communities together to share ideas, challenges, connect, work together. So somehow, yeah, I ended up making another platform, which kind of emerged these things, and out of that came this this thing that looks like a homemade Facebook. Okay, so what is it? What is the product precisely? I've given you a lot of ideology, a lot of background. Of course, I want to invite you to just join it and explore it, but in a nutshell, it is about not doing what Facebook or Meta or X or whatever these platforms are doing to try to harvest our attention to get us to click some ads once in a while and to lock our social networks into their proprietary solution. It is to rather try to create layouts and tools of engagement that encourage solidarity and sharing and participation. Now, that's an ongoing project. There is no kind of secret sauce that will make everyone be a Brian Eno type scene overnight, of course. But the motivation is there to try to kind of experiment with how to use platforms, because platforms online can be tools that kind of underpin or condition the way we interact. To do that, to try to create a community that has a purpose together. To be able to kind of signify that you want to be part of it without having to go into a website, click 7 times, scroll down to page 7, and nothing. So we're working with challenges and ideas and projects, and we are using devices like this one from De Bono, which are known design methods to give feedback to each other, to kind of help us communicate in a better way, not just in a way that drives engagement, which then drives advertisement revenue. And we're sharing our projects and inviting each other into them and to be part of them and seeing what each other is doing and understanding ourselves as more of a collective organism that is composed of that village of ideas. So proposals like projects or challenges that we have to take on together, like Chris here participated in, the choir for people who don't know how to sing. Sharing these kind of things with people and recruiting others to it. Okay, so the launch is Many of you know this. You've now seen the history. The launch is supposed to make this into a product, not just kind of adventures that I find myself in. Our business model, the one that we will publish on our website, we are publishing the code or sharing it as open source with an MIT license, which means that with time people can download it and run it on their own if they so choose. But we are, to try to fund this process and these services, also going to sell a service of hosting these platforms for communities. And so it's going to be based around, these are ISK, Icelandic kronur, and these are thousands. So it's based around active users. So if you have a few active users, meaning people who log on a monthly basis, you pay less. And if you have a lot, you pay more. And so by this, we hope to create a sustainable model for us to continue developing this further. You are invited today to go and launch your own platform if you like. So in all software launches, there has to be at least one demonstration where it kind of crashes. So I just want to show you now, this is something you can do right away, if you like, or tonight or tomorrow. So if you want to try out the platform, here we go. Yeah. So go to Missions.dev, Missions.dev. We haven't updated the motto yet. I told you it changed 30 minutes ago. Create a test platform. You can choose what it's called. So we'll call this one Mandarin. And what you have to do simply is to create a user account. And voila, crashes now. And the platform has been made for you. And you can start here, you log in with a password you just created, and there is a little bit of a wizard that helps you guide to. Now you have mandarin.missions.dev. Everyone is welcome to do this, to test for free while you're testing. There is a little bit of a wizard that helps you customize it and upload a logo and so forth. You are welcome to reach out to us to help you do that, and we will probably send you an email for that purpose. If you want to run it for real, so to speak, we have a service to do that. We are a purpose-driven organization, so we are up for conversations if you don't have the funds or the means to pay us to host it for you. You know, we do want to collaborate with people who are fellow travelers and going in the same direction. Also, Bjørn here has prepared this dish with codes. So we are inviting all of you, because you were so nice to come here to celebrate this with us, to have 4 months for free, and unless you've already made a platform, then it doesn't apply. 4 months for free in production, in real use. So you just kind of grab one ticket there with a code, and then you can try it for free for 4 months. So that's the business part. I'll just say tiny little bit about the technology part. I was going to kind of ceremoniously press a button and upload the code to the public repository. Later tonight, in this organizational page on GitHub called East of Moon, you will find it. East of Moon is the handle on GitHub. We'll upload the code with an MIT license, which allows you to download it and use it and change it. And of course, we hope if you contribute new code to it, that you will share it with the world as well. Just a tiny bit of intro to that. It is comprised of two rather separate components, which is the backend, which is written in the PHP programming language, and then the front end, which is JavaScript and HTML using Vue.js 3. So somebody familiar with these things can start co-creating this with us if they so please. I will admit that we still have to do a bit more to create documentation and help to make this accessible for new people to set it up. At the moment, it is a little bit harder to set up the backend because it depends on some third-party services. However, it is rather more simple to set up the front end and then connect it to a backend that is already live. So for instance, you could download this, set up the front end and connect it to the Hafnarhouse backend and change the layout and a lot of the use and things like that for your own purposes. So Hafnarhouse, everyone could have their own version of the Hafnarhouse app if they wanted, but it would all go to the same backend. Finally, we are making tools to create new futures. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about what the kind of grand plan or the big utopia is for myself, for East of Moon. I hate selling tools as solutions. I like tools. I like making tools. I think they can be helpful, but ultimately, what we want to do is to change the way that's kind of the public sector, society, collectively engages in innovation. To see the process, to see the experimentation, to see the connectivity, the sharing of ideas as the main thing. So I am calling out publicly into the world for a large-scale government or a well-funded union or international organization to try to approach innovation in this way. And we would be more than happy to provide for a reasonable fee solutions to how to do that in a way that is actually engaging communities and building up long-term relationships and not just doing one-off projects that a report is handed in and the funds are released, but do it in a way that builds our capacity to create together. So if you're watching this, Mr. Minister, hello at East of Moon.
Should we all turn and look directly into the camera?
Thank you very much. That was that. I don't know if there's any questions or thoughts or...
Do you think ministers have any influence? Just a silly question.
Yeah, I do think they can have an influence. I'm sure it's all very complicated. It always sort of is, isn't it? Not less than all of us, at least. I have experienced a lot of things that make me, as somebody who believes in public value and believe in the public sector and socialized services, I've experienced a lot of depressing things over time. And there's a lot of in how we approach building together publicly that isn't very conducive to changing things. The idea that's also why this kind of place to experiment thing was so important for me, is this idea that actually, because in politics and public administration, failure isn't really a term that is used, you know, and in politics we have this kind of constant state of attacking each other, and that isn't very creative. And there is also like some very legitimate different interests that emerge in politics. I think they have possibly influence, but yeah, it's very difficult to innovate unless you kind of approach things differently.
Can I ask, do you have some thoughts on how to integrate these processes into political decision making?
Yeah. So something that I've thought a little bit about is at the same time as we were making like Carolina Fund, kind of post crash in Iceland, there were experiments to increase direct democracy and for these kind of citizen-led ideations and things like that. And I think they are very important experiments, and I think they can often have value. But a lot of things have led me to believe that what is not necessarily the most important thing is to make a decision about a particular issue or a project. But the most important thing is the process of experimentation. So I think a lot of people who have seen these kind of direct democracy platforms are frustrated that what seems to come out of them is just kind of very standard thing, like a bench in front of a lake or something, that you don't really need democracy to figure that out. But every time there's something creative or innovative, the problem is that it is a process of iteration and trying, which isn't built into those things. So just to give you a random example as well, we have large-scale discussions that are very important about, do we legalize drugs or something like that? And it's important to decide, should heroin be allowed or cocaine? But what we are missing as a society is like the process in which we deal with drugs, which is inherently a creative process. How do we support people who are addicted to them? How do we make sure they're safe? How do we experiment with these things? How do we try out new ways of approaching drugs as a society? This is inherently a creative process. So the question of are drugs allowed or not allowed? Important, but it's not the most important thing. Does this answer your question? Was it quite an open question?
Many other. I think the question about the minister, I think the role of a minister is to show interest. And if you get a minister's interest, he will follow up, he will problem solve. So imagine you'll have the same conflict with any idea that goes through the platform. You'll have lots of discussion, that's easy. Getting actually somebody to be a project manager, project lead, find funding, and then stick with it when you go through the valley of death or any of these challenging processes, that's going to be the interesting part. So coming into a community with support like that, I think a large aspect of it will be to find those heroes that are willing to kind of do an Arnar.
But it's also important to understand that these valleys of death and these deaths that occur are part of a bigger process. When you guys were making Frumbjörg, some things were successful and some things weren't, and some things turned out. But it's part of charting some sort of a path. So if you see it like that, if you see innovation as learning, collective learning, you'll approach it a bit differently. So then a failed experiment is just a data point.
That probably links with a question that's sort of sitting in my mind a little bit, which is the potential or opportunities for research in terms of how the platform or platforms are being used. I was just thinking, as being a member of Hafner House and using the sort of platform within this kind of context, there's sort of interesting things around, like, I don't know, we've got a mushroom farm downstairs, and a group gets started by one person, and they're one of the heroes. A lot of the energy goes into kind of making it happen over a period of time, and then life happens, and somebody who started something doesn't have the energy for a period of time, but because it sort of sits there within the platform, somebody comes along as well and goes, oh, that's interesting. What was that about? Can I pick that up? You know, and things sort of get taken on. And that's not how you think about things, or public sector thinks about things when it comes to sort of funding something. You go, give me a proposal of a project, you know, either I'm going to fund it or I'm not. Give me the results that happened, maybe something continues on, but if it doesn't, then it's dead and that's never sort of heard of again. And so yeah, I suppose in my head, because coming from that more sort of, how do you talk to, well, both public and private sector in terms of bridging the gap between the realities of actually how people work within either creative communities or innovation communities, and the picture that people have from the outside. Having an evidence base is really valuable. Basically, being able to kind of go, well, we can see from the way that people are using this platform, this is how people seem to be behaving, rather than the sort of the picture that we have in our mind at the moment.
I do think that a platform like this, one of the value that it can have to the people who are trying to encourage community building and supporting different networks, is precisely having transparency and being able to show this, being able to show all the things that are happening and the connectivity between it. We are in a world where, you know, some things are harder to fund than others, and funding this thing that Brian Eno is talking about, scenes, is difficult. There's a lot of people who think Hafnarhouse is a piece of concrete with holes in it that artists come into and create things. And it is, but it's the things in between that is the really hard work. And that's something that a platform can put transparency into.
Okay. Is it interoperable? Meaning that when you have a bunch of different platforms, can they talk to each other and see each other's projects?
Between different platforms?
Yes.
Not yet, no. But it's definitely interesting to think about it. At the end of the day, like I said with code, you know, what it is the backend just exposes JSON APIs, and the front ends consume it. So it's not technically a big hurdle to think about how to kind of get them. There are interesting paradoxes always, like some communities and networks, they prefer to have it closed, and you need to have it closed so that people want to share or feel comfortable to share. Mm-hmm. So there's interesting paradoxes with that.
So I just want to comment shortly that I found a hidden feature or hidden characteristics of Missions.dev. I just recently had this opportunity to meet a lot of new people at once, the travel connected with the project, and those people are, and in general there is this discourse of resting, not burning out, finding another ways to use social media or communicate with groups of people. And Missions.dev apparently is a very sustainable way for communication, in a way that it's not engaging, it's not sick, it's not forcing you for engagement, but encouraging these healthy ways of communicating with people. There is nothing addictive on this platform. And
I don't know, I've spent a bit of time scrolling on this.
Yeah, but with interest and not because the interface is forcing you to. And I think that we are not underlining it enough. And maybe in 10 years, that's going to be the main feature of this program. That is just not addictive.
Yeah, it's, you know, as much as I I'm pessimistic about how to break this monopoly of the big tech platforms. At the same time, they are sort of digging their own graves in a way. It's horrible to open Facebook and be bombarded with these nonsensical things that your eyes just go there, you know. And I don't know. At this moment, it's always showing me bullfighting videos, and I just keep looking at it.
Conversations about it. What is on your feet, okay?
Yeah, but like, I don't want to know about bullfighting, but it just always draws me in. So there's a question in the back.
Oh yes, thank you. I love this, and you know that. I've been in love with this idea for a long time. But I haven't been able to try it, but here I am. I was just wondering, because I love this idea of digitality. You know, you have a digital world and the physical world, and it's combining it in a beautiful way. And I was thinking about combining things and connecting dots. Have you thought of having, like in Carolina Fund, having like a funding element to the project? Because, sorry for my practicality, but it would be great if you would go from idea to, from challenge to idea to a project.
Yeah.
Because I really love the future of raising your hand and saying, I want to help. Because I think that is something that the world needs. Because we are all sharing hearts and likes and whatever. And then just go back to work, as you could say.
Yeah.
So that was something I was thinking about in terms of this platform.
Yeah.
Is that something that you have thought of, or?
Yeah, I mean, when in this Curriculum Paika version, it was connected to crowdfunding, and the Carolina Fund was, you know, connected to that, and it was also connected to like micro grants that the government gave out for experiments, and that's why I was making this appeal to the minister, whichever minister, by the way, doesn't have to be in Iceland. I do think that there is an element that has to be there. There has to be funding to do things. And that's why, in this last appeal is that, you know, take all this creativity and this transparency and these ways of working together and marry that to some serious funding. And I think we can do a lot more.
Yeah, because we're sitting with our pension funds and they're just getting bigger and bigger. They don't know what to
Or
do.
the pension funds.
Hello, pension funds.
Absolutely.
Because their only creative way to use them is buying more concrete and building more houses.
Yeah.
So,
And maybe, exactly.
On that note, did you apply for an IP protection on the hands-up icon? I love that.
Black Panthers.
Which one? This one. I want to help.
Yeah.
I do think this comes. Well, the icon itself comes from some free icon database, but the functionality, no.
I think the idea of it is really brilliant.
Yeah. So in the layout, maybe some of you have seen it. You can say I love this, or you can say what does it say?
Solidarity.
Yeah, no. But I'd like updates.
Yeah.
And I want to help. And the idea behind this is this kind of boundaries of things. You should be able to say, this is great, you go, but like, not me. Or I just want to know what's happening, or I want to help. And you know, these are all experiments in those directions. But yeah, then we have different emojis. Yeah.
And like, let's travel to 10 years future. Is there a certain, maybe more on the fun scale than the funding that you would like to, is there like a group that you would love to have, or something that you have kind of on your wish list that this could create? I don't know, like, just new projects, or if what is on your wish list and of just the accidentals that you might want.
Yeah. So what that is now we have, for instance, Hafna House, which some of you are part of, and we've been creating together. And the city is supporting this project with affordable rent. But right now what we have is like the city says, we're gonna help you artists be very creative in this box. But like back here is where we're gonna be doing things. But you, great. I hope something cool comes out of it. And I am kind of a little bit fantasizing about a reality in which, and this has happened, the people working in the city are like, we want to be here, and we want our space to be a bit more like this. And so that there isn't this difference between how we make art exhibitions like the one that's happening later today, and how we make better school meals, or organize libraries, or something like that. So it's kind of like not have the creative sector boxed in, but it's more kind of together, or the same thing. That's, I never liked the idea of like the creative industries. It's like, show me something that can't be creative. And I think it's kind of getting those people into that. The more boring, the more interesting in a way. Get more, yes, this to be a standard thing that people work with. Daniel.
First, thank you and congratulations. I've had the privilege of seeing this platform evolve in a lot of different ways, and have been using it myself, the space program projects. And I think knowing about the other platforms that are using it, and knowing about the other people and organizations that are using it, would also be really helpful for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I listened to this incredible
we have to organize it differently.
The Planetary Society had a broadcast about TwitchCon. I had no idea that the platform Twitch had its own conference, right? And that it was huge. I don't really use Twitch, so I didn't know that. But in thinking about Missions.dev, I think it would actually be really cool to have a gathering once a year or something with all the different people using the platform, just talking about how they're utilizing it and tricks of getting people to engage more or faster. I think that would be really, really cool and exciting.
We do it in Sardinia?
Yeah, that's not
November, Sardinia.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, no, I mean, good proposal. It's interesting to think about this. At some point, maybe, just being on the internet meant something. That you were kind of open to new things and or being a user of Twitter also said something about you. And maybe that's interesting to think about. What does it mean for you if you're a part of one of those platforms, and that became something that signals something about you.
Yeah, and I think also bridges and nurtures the discussion around, can we connect? Mm-hmm. Can we connect it? Or can we connect this component?
Yeah.
And I think that has the potential to make all the separate platforms that much more powerful and
Building with the star and the rocket, you could make a constellation map of the different stars and then the connection in between them, making the sky brighter future.
And bringing it back to that sort of problem that you encountered in the Westfields of something's happening up in that village and etc. I mean, one of the best kind of sort of tech solution examples that I think I ever came across, and I can't remember what it's called or exactly how it worked now, but it was essentially about system to connect small-scale farmers in different parts of the world, and it was that simple kind of process of, I have this problem, what is a has anyone else encountered this problem essentially, and what solution did you kind of find? And
Yeah.
and this is exactly that sort of thing. If there is bound, the more it sort of grows and the more people use it, the more you're going to get overlap of, oh, we had exactly the same
Yeah.
kind of problem, or exactly the same sort of project.
I mean, for me, this should be built into, whether it's our platform or somebody else's, but like the European Union's funding programs should build those things.
Yeah.
It should be the platform that they use.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that when they're funding small farmers, there is automatically something like this.
Yeah.
They always try.
Right.
They have these platforms, but you can't download PDFs. But it doesn't invite you, it doesn't have shiny colors.
No,
It's
and
not-
when somebody puts forward a proposal that
Yeah.
kind of, okay, we're not going to be able to fund you, but
Yeah.
we know actually this other kind of thing that might be able to help you,
Yeah.
or these other people that have done something similarly. All of that kind of stuff that there's so much kind of wasted energy and knowledge that it's lost at the moment.
This is wonderful. Thank you for joining, and
Thank you.
especially for you guys who have been part of it for so many.
Please
So
can
much
you
time.
distribute the codes before we forget?
Yeah, so one thing, because people wanted to know of each other, we do have a mailing list for East of Moon, and if you're not on it, you can put yourself on it there. And yeah, to grab a code, one code per person,
Give the list.
and then have some snacks and things.
Okay.
But thank you so much for joining for this historical moment.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.